Hello, this is Gary, and in this video I just want to cover a general overview of some aspects about the fairy model that I used for the short film Treasure. So I bought the model, it was for Maya, and I just don't have time to model something that's complicated right now. I bought the model for Maya. Now the rig did not transfer over, so I used the built-in Rigify add-on for Blender, and if I go to my pose mode here, you can see that it works just fine. I then of course did the skinning process. So I had to do that over again. I did the hair over again. And then the wings, if I go to my graph editor, there's a little repeating cycle. When you play it back, you can see they're alternating. So on the fairy wings, I did a particle system so that we can have some sparkles emit from the wings. And then you can see over here, this is the shading network for the wings themselves. So if you want to pause it, you can take a look at how that looks. So now I'm going to go into the render view. So we're just going to go to rendered, and it was rendered in cycles. If I go ahead and get rid of my overlays, you know, we're just mostly using default settings and cycles, nothing crazy. Let's go look at the UVs real quick. It is a UDIM patch, a UDIM tile. Now Blender, I think Blender 2.8 or may have been 2.9, I forgot which version, but it began to support UDIMs. So this is excellent because UDIMs are, I mean, they're fantastic. You can get more detail on your model. So I think these are 8K patches. And yeah, I believe they're 8K patches. So there's 2 of them. And so yeah, that's really about it. And the model is fairly detailed. This detail is not going to be seen in the final film anyway. Of course, I also did a bit of a shader for the 3D model itself. So there we go. This is a very basic shader. I mean, we're just using a little bit of bump, specular highlights, and diffuse color. So very simple, nothing fancy. And I use an HDRI in the background to light it. That's the HDRI. And then as for color management, we're keeping it real simple. If I go over to here, I go to my color management, you can see we're using the filmic and the high contrast. So nothing really too involved here. And then if I go into, I'm going to go back to solid, and I'm going to import or show all of them. So here's all of the fairies. All right, so here are all of the fairies in wireframe, and here's a solid view. And if I go to the material preview, you can see they are using different colors. Let's go to the rendered view. We're rendering it with cycles, of course, GPU compute. On the system tab, you can see I'm using an RTX Asus Strix 3090. And this is the final results of the fairies. So now I can import these into a scene and start animating. So I used Blender's camera tracker to track this shot right here. This is the final, and this is Blender's camera tracker. There's some tutorials online of how to use it, but it is very easy to use. It's very robust, and so we have now recreated the camera motion of the original shot, and I've also, of course, created some references for these trees. And so here is the final shot, how everything came out. We've got the fairies, they're currently in wireframe view, and we've got some little dummy objects here that are meant to help with casting shadows. So when this fairy flies away, you can see a very faint shadow on this pirate's. He's got a white shirt on, you can see here in the final film. So there's the 3 fairies. These are very crude objects here, not meant to be perfect. We're going to go into the solid view here, and I had to match the depth of field of the shot with the actual camera shot that I did on the set. So that took a little bit of time. I mean, if you have your settings saved and you know exactly what they were, then you shouldn't have to do it like I did, which is a bit more manual. But in the end, I matched the depth of field and everything worked out pretty good. So now we're going to render this out. And so here you can see how everything looks. We're using, again, the Cycles renderer, GPU compute, 2048 samples. And because there's not a whole lot going on in the scene, each frame took roughly about a minute to render in 4K. So I could get these shots rendered out pretty quickly. And you can see also, of course, the shutter angle matches that with what I was using on the camera, which was 180 degrees, and here in Blender it's 0.5. And that right there just gives you a sense of kind of how I did 3D animation. I'm not going into detail about how I actually animated, but just to give you a sense of the general overview of the entire process. So I hope that gives you some insight, and thanks for watching.